Hi, everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit about discipline because I've heard from some people that it seems like I'm suggesting that we don't discipline our children, which is just absolutely not true. However, we do need to discipline in a very different way. Our children have been harmed significantly by the coercion and control dynamics that happened in our home. And so they have learned to regulate their behaviors and they are oftentimes reactive. They're coming from a trauma place and I like to call it, unfortunately, broken brain. So if your child had a broken leg, right, how would we treat them in those moments with the broken leg and those weeks of recovery, right? But the reality is that children in these homes, even if they're seem like they're well behaved, they are getting great grades and they're following all of the rules in the home, that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing the trauma. They're just they're manifesting it in a different way. They might be disassociating in some ways, right? And so they flee, right? They may actually just go to schoolwork, let's say, or get really engaged in sports, but that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing the trauma. And so children have different ways of manifesting their broken brains, and we can talk more about that in another episode. But the reality is discipline is certainly important, but understand that every time that we discipline, it feels like to our children that we're coming from an authoritarian place. Think about leaders who are authoritarian. I'll give an extreme example, Hitler, right? And so the coercive controller in some cases may have been the authoritarian in the home. They may have been the one who insisted that certain rules were followed. Not all coercive controllers. Some coercive controllers are neglectful parents. They let children do whatever they want. And that can be almost as harmful, if not as harmful. So knowing that you, as the protective parent, need to come from an authoritative place, which authoritative rhymes with give. We have to come from a collaborative place. We have to come from a place where we almost, in some ways, decide which of the indiscretions are happening that we can kind of ignore or not engage in, because every time we correct, it feels like it's authoritarian. Because every time we correct, it induces shame. That's exactly what the coercive controller wants. He wants our children to feel shame. He wanted us to feel shame. And he wants our children to feel shame. And he creates something called ego compromise. Again, another discussion. But the reality is that the more that he can keep us and or our children oppressed, the more that we will line up. Our children will line up as soldiers. So the more that we can create more agency for our children and really in some ways use the law of attraction, that there is, our child does something that maybe seems reprehensible or horrible, but we know deep down inside that's not truly our child. And when we reprimand for that event, whatever it is, maybe they bully someone at school because that is what they're learning as a result of the broken brain, right? That is what they're learning, that they have to defend themselves, right? That they have to be mean in order to gain control. They have to do that. And so we're so upset that they did that. But the reality is what they need from us is not someone who's really angry at them or someone who's disciplining them for that. Disciplining is nuanced. Hang on a minute. But that we are saying that we are so sorry that they were so sad in that moment, or so angry that they felt that behavior would work, right? Not that you did this and this was harmful. I can't believe you behaved this way. I'm disappointed in you. Those are all shame-inducing parenting strategies that do not work with our children. Our goal has to be to create the most ego-resilient children, because that coercive controller is working double time to marginalize our children's egos, the healthy egos. We have to work triple time to elevate their healthy egos. And that means that sometimes we almost, in some ways, choose our battles and don't necessarily highlight every single bad thing that's happening. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helpful. I'll come back and talk about that more. Have a great day, guys.